rain fell like ash on the scorched plains of Ganymede's western valley, hissing as it hit the cold black soil. Commander Ree Carver trudged through the muddy terrain, pulse rifle slung across his back, visor fogged from his own breath. His mission was clear: locate the downed alien vessel, secure its pilot, and return to base Theta before nightfall. But what he found was nothing like what Command had briefed him on. The ship was crumpled like tin foil against the rocks, its gleaming silver hull torn open by the crash. Smoke still curled from the ruptured core. Inside, amidst flickering blue lights and alien consoles, was her. She was tall, nearly his height, with luminescent gray skin that shimmered like oil under the ship's damaged lighting. Her eyes, massive and glassy, locked onto him instantly. No weapons in her hands, no aggression, just pain. One of her legs was twisted unnaturally beneath her, a shard of metal protruding from her thigh. Ree raised his weapon anyway. "Identify yourself," he ordered. She blinked, her breathing ragged. When she finally spoke, it wasn't in any language Ree recognized, but his neural translator kicked in a second later. Her voice, filtered and processed, came through his earpiece soft, almost melodic. "You are not what I expected." "Likewise," Ree replied, lowering his weapon just slightly. "I'm not here to kill you, unless you give me a reason to." Her head tilted. "Then help me, or finish it. Choose." Against his better judgment, he holstered his rifle and stepped inside. He knelt and examined the wound. The metal had cauterized part of it, but infection was already spreading. He had only basic medical supplies, but enough to stabilize her. As the alien woman's secret unraveled, he sprayed a coagulant over the gash. She hissed, trembling violently. "You're lucky," he muttered. "A few inches higher, and that would have shredded your artery." Her gaze never left his. "Why would a soldier care for an enemy?" "Because I'm not sure you are the enemy," he said, sealing the bandage. "And because you're clearly alone." They spent the night inside the ruined vessel. Her name, he learned, was LRA. She was a scout for the Thaylan Dominion, a race that had been at odds with humanity for the last 3 decades. Yet in her silence, her subtle expressions, there was no hate, only curiosity. Over the next few days, Ree built a small shelter beside the crashed ship. He couldn't move her far in her condition, and communication with base Theta was severed, scrambled by whatever exotic energy had powered her ship. With no backup, he focused on survival, fire, warmth, food, and conversation. LRA was slow to trust. She watched him carefully, like a predator unsure if it had been bested or saved. But as her leg healed and her strength returned, something changed. One night, under the pale shimmer of Ganymede's stars, she asked, "Why did you stay?" Ree was cleaning his sidearm, half distracted. "Figured if I left you, you'd die. Didn't sit right with me." She studied him, her head slightly tilted. "That's not the only reason." He looked up. "No, it's not." The air between them grew heavy. "Electric. Whatever you did to me," she said slowly, stepping closer on her still healing leg. "Do it again." He blinked, confused. "What?" "You gave me something. A feeling I haven't known, Mercy." She reached out and touched his chest, her fingers trembling slightly. "I didn't know we could feel this way about humans." By the second week, the forbidden experiment began to unfold. The line between captor and companion blurred completely. LRA shared stories of the stars her people had colonized, their strange music, their rituals of mourning and celebration. Ree, in turn, told her of Earth, oceans and forests, war and peace, the loneliness he carried even among his own kind. They laughed. They argued. One night, she sang for him, a haunting melody that made his skin prickle and heart ache. Something between them grew. Raw, complicated, undeniable. But time was not on their side. On the 16th day, a human dropship pierced the clouds and landed nearby. Ree and LRA stared at it in silence. Command had found him. "I have to turn you in," Ree said quietly, not meeting her eyes. "I know," she replied. But as the soldiers approached, weapons raised and orders barked, LRA did something unexpected. She knelt. A gesture of surrender. A Thaylan warrior, who once commanded dreadnoughts, now bowed to the very species she had been trained to despise. The human captain, A burly woman with a harsh expression scowled. "What the hell is this, Carver? You bonding with the enemy now?" "She's not the enemy," Ree said, stepping in front of LRA. "She's a survivor. Like us. Command will decide that." LRA was bound and sedated, taken aboard the ship. Ree watched silently, fists clenched, every part of him screaming that this wasn't how it should end. Back on Earth, weeks passed. Ree filed his reports. He was debriefed, interrogated, even commended for surviving alone for so long. But he couldn't shake the memory of her voice, her touch, the way she'd surrendered not out of fear, but out of trust. He pulled every string he could, dug through restricted files, found her. She was being held at a black site research facility, designated as a Type 7 xenopolitical threat. No contact allowed, no appeal granted. But Ree had seen enough war, enough lines drawn in blood. He broke protocol. With stolen access codes and a covert shuttle, he infiltrated the facility. Alarms blared. Lights flashed red. But he found her, in a glass cell, pale, weaker than before, but alive. Her eyes widened as she saw him. "Ree," she breathed, collapsing into his arms as he shattered the cell door. They escaped through the ventilation shafts, fire alarms and security drones echoing behind them. A lucky hit from his EMP grenade scrambled the facility's tracking systems long enough for their shuttle to vanish into the night. Now, in orbit around the dwarf planet Ares, they lived off-grid inside an old mining station. Hidden. Free. LRA sat beside him, her fingers brushing his, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Do you regret it?" she asked one night. "Defying your kind for me?" Ree shook his head slowly. "No, because I was never really theirs." She leaned into him, her skin warm now, more vibrant. The air between them shimmered again, not from heat, but from something deeper. Shocking revelation. "I surrendered once," she whispered. "Not to the soldiers, to you. And if you ask me again," he turned to her, heart pounding, "then I will say the same words again." Her voice was low. "Whatever you did to me, do it again." And he did. Not with force, not with violence, not with conquest, but with care, with hands that healed instead of harmed, with words that broke walls she'd been raised to keep, with love that transcended the limits of blood and species. Epilogue. 10 years later, the war between humans and Thalen ended. No one knew exactly why. Some said a rogue general brokered peace. Others whispered about an unknown emissary who united both sides. But in the far reaches of the Ares sector, two former enemies stood side by side. Not in uniforms, not in chains, but as equals. And when a new generation of explorers asked how peace was possible, LRA would simply smile and say, "Because someone chose not to see me as a threat, but as a person. Because mercy was stronger than war. Because whatever he did to me, he did it."